One of the greatest success stories of this generation of consoles is, I think, God of War. This was a game that faced an uphill battle with its brand new direction, but against all odds and adversity, the game released to overwhelming positive reception and critical acclaim, and also became Sony's fastest selling and most successful first-party release ever. God of War's success can be attributed to a number of factors. The story pulled at your heartstrings with its more personal, emotional, character-driven approach. The gameplay and combat was tactile and a perfect balance of old and new. The game's visual representation of Norse mythology was nothing short of breathtaking, both technically and artistically, and the title retained its integrity by staying away from any form of microtransactions. But the game's development journey wasn't always a smooth one, especially for game director Cory Barlog, who had to overcome a lot of self-doubt and harsh criticism before all the pieces finally came together. The following information comes from a recent article by website Games Industry, which transcribed information provided by Cory during a presentation at DEF CON 2018. The article begins by describing the game's development as convoluted and how, to many onlookers, the game appeared perilously close to coming off the rails. Cory described how the process of building the first playable version of the game was arduous in large part because the engine, the tools, the mechanics, the levels, everything was being built at the same time in parallel. There was also the issue of Santa Monica Studios being overconfident in their ability to playtest a game of this scale, size, and magnitude. Cory admitted that he and his studio had thought of themselves as experts of playtesting before they realized that God of War was a whole different beast that would require outside help on that front. So the studio eventually turned to a playtesting lab in San Mateo, California that's commonly used by Sony Studios, and that's when the team began receiving some pretty harsh criticism on the builds they had back then. At one point, Cory cited the sequence in the game which had Kratos collect plants from a forest and how at the time, the cinematic for that sequence was really rough, with the article noting how the animator's voice was used as a placeholder and that there were a host of visual quirks. Furthermore, apparently some people were none too happy about how Kratos was being represented as a character, with Cory recounting, quote, "It didn't look that great. Probably some of the most verbose and vicious commentary came from that. What are you doing to Kratos? You're ruining Kratos. He's picking flowers. He's picking flowers? This is ridiculous." One guy wanted to leave the playtest. He was so angry that Kratos was picking flowers. After that, I said there's going to be an achievement. You're going to have to pick 100 flowers now. Cory also talked a bit about feedback he got from the general public after the game's E3 2016 reveal, stating the following, "But that kind of feedback happened throughout because everybody knew about the game after E3 2016 where the game was revealed especially. People were very protective of the franchise, and if they thought something was wrong, they did not hesitate to tell me how much I suck. Doubt was definitely always there throughout all of that." Another area where the team struggled was combat, with Cory noting how it took forever to nail the core loop. He said, quote, "In previous games it felt good. We got that feeling good early and we built on that. But we didn't have anything feeling good. The core loop didn't feel good, but the combat team was super confident and I trusted them. They got it, but I needed them to get it way earlier, so I was really trying to force it." Cory eventually pushed the process along by requesting a playable demo of the game before PlayStation Experience 2017. But that also meant having higher-ups like Sony's Shuhei Yoshida coming in to playtest the game, and apparently that part did not go so well. Here's how Cory described it. "He, Yoshida, comes in once in a while, but we don't let him play. We don't let anybody play. If the game is ready to be played by somebody, we give them the controller, but very rarely do we do that. I mean, the frame rate was terrible, everything just felt bad. He's playing, he's got scrunched up shoulders, head shaking a little bit. I definitely get the feeling while he's playing that he's not having the greatest of times, which is great. I mean, it burns me out a little bit, but that's what I brought him in here for." He kinda shook his head and walked out the door. He never told me how he felt. In fact, he only told one of my friends who he saw at a party. He, Yoshida, said, "Oh, you're working on God of War? I just gotta say, I played the game the other day. I was horrified." Horrified? Shuhei said he was horrified while he was playing the game? Keep in mind that this wasn't even in the early stages of development. This all happened around 6 months prior to the game's launch, though it's also worth noting that games do tend to come together during the last few months and weeks of development. I've heard time and again from developers how they scramble to the last minute to weave all the pieces together and iron out the kinks. Now, as mortifying as it might have been to receive such harsh feedback from Yoshida, it was exactly what Corey needed to hustle the team to nail the combat loop and get the frame rate up to par before another visit from Yoshida, and it all paid off in the end. Corey recounted, quote, "Everyone had to rally together, not just the combat team, but the engine team, the rendering team. In the end, it worked. He played it again, and you can see the two different poses of Shu. Horrified is much more rigid. The second time, he was not horrified. It was super good, very exciting. The lesson I had to keep learning was to put the difficult thing in front of us and not get comfortable. We need to force ourselves sometimes to be very uncomfortable." And that is where games industry's transcription of this panel concluded, though Corey apparently shared a lot of other details about God of War's development. But as far as the struggle is concerned, this is pretty much the gist of what you need to know. Bottom line is that Corey and team poured sweat, tears, and blood to make God of War the masterpiece that it is today. And part of that process involved receiving very harsh critique and feedback that ultimately served as motivators to get this game right, to prove naysayers wrong. At the same time, though, I can only imagine the strain and self-doubt Corey experienced when so much of the behind-the-scenes feedback was pessimistic, all while he was carrying so much on his shoulders. You can tangibly see the cathartic release and the weight on his shoulders being lifted in the video he posted on the night God of War's review embargo lifted to reveal critics absolutely loved this game. And when the game finally released, the rest of the gaming community showered the game with praise as well. And after that, we found out the game went on to become Sony's greatest first-party success yet. Despite all the struggle, all the doubts, in the end, Corey and team did it. It's an inspiring story for me personally, and I'm super happy for Corey and team. I'm proud of them. I can't thank them enough for re-sparking my love for gaming through this, what I think to be a masterpiece of a game. I'm grateful they didn't give in to any of the microtransactions bullshit, and I think all their current success and accolade is well-deserved. In a landscape dominated by the notion that live services are the future of AAA gaming, God of War was a refreshing reminder that games can just be games and still come out on the other side prospering, so long as you entice people with a worthwhile, passionately crafted product. These are just one man's perspective anyway. I'd love to hear what your take is on Corey's account of God of War's very arduous development process in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content and would like to support this channel directly, consider donating on Patreon. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.